Before we begin proceedings, I'd like to acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional owners of the land in which we meet, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. It is upon their ancestral lands that the University of Sydney is built, and we share our knowledge, teaching, learning and research practices within this university. May we also pay respects to the knowledge embedded forever within the Aboriginal custodianship of country. So, welcome and thank you for coming to this quick bite session on what's in a name, how to get credit for your research from the outset. I'm Karen Chilcott. I'm one of the academic liaison librarians at the University Library, and with me is my colleague, Dr. Rosie O'Donnell. During today's session, we're going to be focusing on establishing researcher profiles, and in particular, establishing an ORCID profile. So as researchers and scholars, you face the challenge of distinguishing your research activity from everyone else. Global communications technology means that researchers have easy and quick access to an unprecedented amount of information from around the world. It's led to a very competitive research environment, and as researchers, you need to do all you can to be visible, to stand out in the crowd and showcase your skills and experience. You need to make it easy for others to identify and find both you and your work. The way to do this is by creating a researcher profile. A researcher profile is a way of individualising yourself from all other researchers. It allows you to showcase your research, grants, publications and other measures of achievement. It allows you to show people what you are doing, to invite contact with potential collaborators and to get your research out to a wider audience and open up development opportunities. With more and more research being published every year, it can be difficult to identify any single author from all the others that share a particular surname. And as much as we want to think that we're all unique, and you may well be, but once you start looking, you find out that our names are usually not. There are many others out there with the same or similar names. Now, over your career, you may change your name, or you may change the way you use your name. Sometimes you don't have a say in how it's formatted, especially if you're working in a collaboration. Publications frequently have their own methods that you are forced to comply with, or cultural differences may lead to a variation. Whatever the reason, your name can be displayed in a variety of ways and lead to confusion in identification. So the main reason for setting up a profile is to have all of your publications listed in the one place and make it easy for others to identify your work. There are many different types of researcher profiles available. Some are automatically provided for you, and others you will need to establish yourself. You may find that more than one profile is needed to best showcase your research, as each service has different advantages. The tools listed on this page provide you with or allow you to create profiles that you can use to showcase your output. What and how many profiles you have is something that you're going to have to decide for yourself. It's important to note, however, that you do need to keep them up to date and ensure all your publications are included. And some of these profiles might take a little more work than others. As a starting point, all University of Sydney academics and HDR students are automatically given an institutional profile. Your profile comprises of information that's held in several databases across the university. These include the Integrated Research Management Application, or IRMA, Human Resources, the Research Supervisor Connect database, and Sydney Student. The majority of the content can be modified on request. Just contact your faculty research officer for more information. You should ensure that your profile suits your needs. Think carefully about the terms used to describe your research and use what best represents you in order to make yourself as discoverable as possible. Use the Find a Researcher link or your faculty or departmental pages on the university webpage to locate your profile. So the benefits of an institutional profile include the fact that they're drawn from authoritative sources, usually institutional systems such as HR and repositories. They're centrally located and usually automatically updated. They encourage collaboration and can be used by media sources. They assist in recording and tracking achievements and performance and help raise your professional standing. They can include your research interests, grants, qualifications, awards and accolades, current projects and publications. They'll also provide you with a personal URL that you can include on business cards and in social media. Outside of that, the profile that's becoming one of the must-have tools across the Australian university research sector, and one that you should take time to invest in, is an ORCID ID. We'll spend the rest of our talk introducing you to ORCID and demonstrating how having an ORCID ID can help you get credit for all of your research. So ORCID is currently the most widely adopted cross-platform identifier, and it's used by many different publishers, reducing the need for you to keep track of different identifiers for each different platform. Your ORCID ID can connect you with other scholarly ID systems like Web of Science and Scopus. You only have to keep track of and use one ID, not several, to search for and link all of your research outputs. ORCID stands for Open Researcher and Contributor ID. It's an international, interdisciplinary, open and not-for-profit organisation supported by a global community of universities, publishers, funders, professional associations and other stakeholders in the research ecosystem. It acts as a hub that links different research works and activities across multiple platforms and can assist in streamlining research administration and reporting. It helps distinguish authors with similar names and to simplify searching. An ORCID ID is a 16-digit persistent digital identifier that distinguishes a researcher. This identifier can be attached to all of your various scholarly works, be they publications, data sets or any other type of work that firmly identifies you as the author of or contributor to the work. ORCID has two main functions. It's a registry of unique identifiers, and it acts as a hub that supports system-to-system communication and authentication. The ORCID registry is free to individuals and allows researchers to obtain an identifier, manage their record of activities and search for others in the registry. The ORCID record holds biographical information such as your name, email, organisation, education and research activities, including publications and grants. Individuals have control over privacy and access to their own data and how it is shared. Researchers are able to link their identifier with external systems. So organisations such as universities, publishers and funders can become members and link their records to ORCID identifiers. An ORCID ID doesn't replace existing IDs, but rather it creates links among these identifiers and allows you to import and export information between these systems and your ORCID record. So why use ORCID? Firstly, as I said before, it eliminates name ambiguity. Researchers often share similar names and your name can change over your career. ORCID eliminates this by providing a numeric ID and allowing for name variants to be included in your profile. For example, your name could be formatted as John Smith in one document, as John A. Smith in another, as J. A. Smith in yet another, and make a definite identification of all your work difficult. In another example, I've worked with an Australian researcher whose area of speciality is Latin America. When he published in Latin American journals, they requested his name be in their usual format of given name, patrilineal name and matrilineal name. This means that his name varies depending on which country he publishes in. An ORCID ID can remove the ambiguity and make sure that all his publications can be identified as being by him. Some of the world's largest publishers, funders and institutions have adopted ORCID. Increasingly more publishers and funders are incorporating it into their workflows. For example, a publisher may request your ORCID ID during the manuscript submission process and offer a link to ORCID option, which allows you to grant them permission to interact with your ORCID profile. This type of interaction can allow organisations to use your ORCID profile to automatically fill in your personal details, so you don't have to do it manually to complete a form, and they can also push the details of your new article to your ORCID profile upon publication. Administrators within your organisation, such as our research office, can make use of your unique identifier to reduce their workflows. Your ORCID ID is issued to you personally and it is not directly connected to your institution. Therefore, it can move with you when or if you change institutional affiliation. Having a unique research identity is also an important step in improving your research impact, as it makes your research output easier to identify. By attaching the same unique identity to all your work ensures that all of your works can be found when others search for your research output. ORCID is increasingly receiving support worldwide, and the number of institutions, publishers and funders that have joined ORCID in order to integrate ORCID identifiers into their local systems and workflows is also growing. Recently, there was a group of 18 journal publishers, mostly in the science fields, that have made a decision to make ORCID a requirement for submission to their publications. Here in Australia, a number of Australian institutions have joined ORCID and are integrating ORCID with their systems and workflows. In late 2014, Universities Australia, the Council of Australian University Librarians, the Australian National Data Service and the Australasian Research Management Society released a joint statement proposing that ORCID be adopted as a common research identifier. While in April 2015, the Australian Research Council and the National Health and Medical Research Council also released a statement encouraging all researchers applying for funding to have an ORCID identifier. It's possible that in the near future, having an ORCID ID will be a requirement for any funding application. This university is currently in the process of preparing to link the Research Office database called IRMA with ORCID. The rollout for this should happen sometime in 2017, and at that time it will facilitate the sharing of data between IRMA and ORCID. Researchers will also then be able to have their ORCID ID included in their institutional profile. So I'm now going to hand over to Rosie, who's going to give you a practical demonstration of using ORCID and creating an ORCID ID.
I'll just get hooked up to the mic here and switch over. Okay. Yeah, you just changed it. That's okay. Okay, so it's very quick and simple to create an ORCID ID. Head to orchid.org and click on the Register Now hyperlink at step 1. Fill in your details on the form, your name, email address, create a password, choose which level of email notification you want, tick the I'm not a robot and the terms of use, and register. Once your profile page opens, you'll also get an email at the same time asking you to verify your email address, and that'll have your 16-digit ORCID number in it and a full link to your public record. When I open my public record, you can see I've actually added more information than the form asked for, including 2 works which are my dissertations. I've chosen to make this visible to anyone so that people viewing my record can actually see full details of my work, but they can't do anything else to the record. When I go into full account view, you can see what else you can do. Over here on the left, using the pencil icon to edit, make sure that you actually do use the name you want your work to be known by in the published name field. I've chosen the name Rosemary S. O'Donnell in the hope that I can distinguish myself from all the other Rosemary O'Donnells out there. You can also put in all versions of your name that you have published under. It's important to include at this stage things like your initials, name abbreviations, different surnames if you've got them, or non-Latin characters if that's relevant to you. You can also add your country of residence, your research interest keywords, websites that include your institutional profile URL, for example, or say ResearchGate, academia.edu profiles, and a LinkedIn page. Just use the plus icon here to add more information. You can add a biography here at the top, and also your education and employment information, and your works and funding. But before I add anything else, I actually want to speak a little bit about privacy settings here. You can see that there are privacy icon selectors at various points in my record, here at the biography level, at the works level, but also on my published name and on my name variants. I can select different privacy settings for each and every different bit of information that's on here. There's actually 3 different settings available to you. The green everyone icon is visible to the public. The orange key is only allowing access or visibility to trusted parties that you've authorized to link with your record. And this only me red lock restricts access to you. I've just now made my honors thesis private, so when we go back to my public record and refresh it, you'll see that that is actually removed from my list of works. You have that kind of flexibility. One thing I didn't say about your name variants, it's really important to have all your name variants in so that the import functionality of ORCID will actually find all of the work that has been published for you. There are 2 ways you can get works into your record. You can add them manually or you can import them. I'm going to show you how to import using the search and link function here. When I click on that, I get a list of member organizations that are also trusted within ORCID. I can choose which of these I want to give authorization to. I'm going to choose Crossref Metadata Search to link to my record. I get a page asking me to authorize them, and I click yes on that. This will open a page of publications with the name Rosemary O'Donnell already attached to them. If this was actually me, this Rosemary O'Donnell, I could simply click on the Add to ORCID to get that data into my record. It's not me, so I don't do that. I don't have any publisher IDs, so I actually manually added my dissertations to the works area by using the Add Works, Add Manually link. When I did that, I was then able to pick a publication category, and that opened up dissertation as an option to me. I copied and pasted all of my information into the various fields from the catalogue record where my PhD is held, and I also made sure to put in the URL to the catalogue record so that when you go back to my work, you can actually get to that reference and find out where my work is held. Funding also works by manual import or by using manually or by using an import wizard. If you click on the Add Some Now and the Uber wizard for ORCID, you can tell that to authorize that to link to your record. This will also generate a list, but you can see that there are no grants under my name because I've never actually applied for one. But you can also see from this record that you can find grants by title as well, and that's another way of getting your work into your record. Okay. If I go to the Account Settings tab, you can see from here that I can actually edit all my permissions in this one area. For example, if I decide to change my privacy preferences, I can click here and lock the record down so that it's only visible to me. But this will only apply to any information that is now added to the record. I would have to go back and actually use the privacy selectors on every individual item that was public before this to make that fully private. You can also see here, under the list of trusted organizations, those member organizations that I gave permission to link with my record. You can see what access type they have, and different organizations will have different versions of access to read and write to your record. You can remove that permission very simply by clicking on the bin and then saying remove as trusted organization. You can also add an individual that you trust to edit your record, but they also have to have an ORCID ID. You can use their number, email address, or a name to get them in. And for example, I can add Karen Chilcott into this to be able to edit my record for me and search for her by name. Now, it'll bring up a big list, but I happen to know that this is the Karen Chilcott that I'm looking for, and I can add her like this. And she's now a trusted individual. But I can also revoke that in 2 easy steps by clicking on Revoke Access. And that actually concludes our presentation and demonstration of ORCID. So, does anybody have any questions for us?
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming.